You okay?
Yeah, I'm fine.
Well, it's just picking up games can't be good for you.
I'm fine, okay? Just do the review. Ugh.
Jak and Daxter on the PS2. Compared to its sequels, it's rather simple. I guess it's fair to say that. It certainly has less stuff to do in it. For one, you cannot murder innocent civilians. But quantity isn't everything, you know. A short fun game is still a fun game. It's a 3D platformer. That's pretty much it. You jump from thing to ledge, and from ledge to up, and from up to down. All the while collecting a bunch of things in the same vein of stuff like Banjo-Kazooie. The basic story of this game is that Daxter, your ugly friend, fell into a pool of dark eco and turned into this orange critter. And Jak has to go north to talk to a sage who possibly has a cure, but the only way north is through a canyon of molten magma. Kira has a vehicle.
As a little addendum, I forgot to mention these two in my script. They're very important. Samos and Kira. Green Sage and someone. Nice to meet you.
Kira has a vehicle that can take you across, providing you have enough power cells to fuel the heat shield. Once you get across the canyon, there's a new set of areas to explore and a different obstacle blocking your path, requiring a larger amount of power cells than before. So there you go, you gotta run around collecting power cells to progress through the game, kinda like Jiggies and Power Stars. You also collect precursor orbs, these egg-shaped things that you use to trade for more power cells. And then there's these scout flyers that give you a power cell if you collect all 7 of them in a level, and that's the game. It's a collectathon. Now I've heard that collectathons get flack for being collectathons. Some people find the collecting of bunches of items in a big old platformy world to be pointless busy work. They find it tedious. And to be honest, there's some validity in their claims. You see, it's all down to the nature of the game type. It's 3-dimensional. In 2D games you collected things too, like coins and hearts and stuff. But that for some reason doesn't get as much criticism, mostly because the collectibles aren't terribly important. You can leave coins well enough alone in Mario if you wanted to, but sometimes you run over and try to get them anyway, even when you don't really need an extra life. Why? It's because grabbing a coin is simple. How to get coin? Move character into appropriate X and Y axis to be able to touch coin. Limited hassle. The only thing stopping you is the perilousness of the platforming required. In 3D, you suddenly got the Z axis. Now instead of merely pushing a couple of direction buttons, there are a billion different ways to approach the collectible, and also a billion ways to miss it, generating more hassle. And yeah, this problem is apparent in Jak and Daxter to an extent. Sometimes the collectibles are annoying purely because they exist in 3D space, and not because there's any sort of platforming challenge involved in retrieving them. I'm looking at you, diving mechanic. You're not very good. But they make up for the finickitiness of the 3D space thanks to the blue eco mechanic. Blue eco is this blue energy ball that you can pick up. It makes you run fast for a short time, and it can activate certain mystical mechanisms. But it also picks up all the shit around you in a decently large radius, so you can just run on by like whoop whoop whoo, like an everything magnet. Except for some things. Therefore, it is not an everything magnet, it is a very specific magnet. So if you don't feel like touching all those orbs, you don't need to, as long as there's blue eco around. Of course, blue eco is indeed not always around, but even without it, picking up orbs ain't so bad. Most of the time. Eco is the main mechanic in this game, aside from jumping and whacking enemies. There are 4 kinds. Well, technically 6. Blue eco, which I just explained makes you run fast, pick up things and activate certain machinery. Green eco, which acts as a healing item. Grab 50 of the little ecos to regain a thing of health. You have 3 health thingies, but you can stock up an extra 50 green ecos so that when you get hit, you still have full life. I always like that. 50 is a big number though, so the green ecos end up being yet another thing to collect. Then there's yellow eco, which allows Jak to shoot balls of fire at his enemies. This is pretty fun, but since all the ecos have a short time limit, you hardly ever get to use it. One thing I really like about this though, is that you don't need to aim particularly well. If you shoot at an enemy behind a tree or something, the fireball will often curve around it. It's very generous. Then there's red eco. This actually seems like the rarest for some reason. All this does is increase the damage done by your basic attacks. It kills enemies in one hit, basically. This eco feels the most underutilized. There's only a small number of areas that have red eco, and said areas have an unusually large amount of enemies to fight, to balance out your temporary power boost. There's not really much to say about it beyond that. And then there's Dark Eco. Dark Eco is what turned Daxter into a furry thingy, but when you touch it, it hurts. A vat of Dark Eco is instant death.
I mean, I assume you die. Maybe if Jak falls in, he also turns into an orange critter, but at that point the game would be over because you wouldn't be able to do anything, and so they just sort of cut and rewind. I don't know, who cares?
Let's talk about the combat now, because there's a fair amount of it in this game. You whack guys by punching and spin kicking with square and circle respectively. A punch lunges you forward, and a spin kick hits all enemies around you. You can also jump and press square to do a ground slam. All these moves have such satisfying sound design, even if you miss. But when you do hit, there's this delicious sound. Whacking enemies is great fun, and moving around is fun too. Dang it, everything about movement in this game is fun. You can roll jump into an enemy, killing it. Follow it up with a punch! And then, and flip flap floop all over the dang place.
Punching feels good. Moving feels good. And then you punch, and then you kick. And you punch and kick and move and jump and punch and kick, and it's just so good. Vocabulary? What's that?
When presented with this lovely big open world to explore, you just have the urge to jump and roll all the time. You know in Zelda games where you roll around all the time just because you feel like it? It's kinda like that, but it doesn't feel like much of an obligation because running normally also looks and sounds pleasant. Ah, so majestic. The enemies in this game are easy to beat. They run towards you in a straight line and you either have to hit them once or twice to kill them. A few enemies have some phase where they're indestructible, like these spinny guys, but for the most part, they no problem. They're really not much of a challenge on their own. They serve mostly as an annoyance while trying to do platforming. They're all very slow, so if you have space, you can easily run away. And enemies that shoot projectiles are few in number, and their projectiles are also very slow and easily dodgeable. Despite not being all that difficult to fight, they, like the rest of the game, are colourful, cartoonish, and cool. I like the designs. You got these basic lurker guys which are like bumbling purple cartoony beast people. There's these big blue skull guys that take 2 hits, but instead of them just flashing red or something, they have this whole separate animation for when they take damage. You hit them and their skull hat gets stuck on their head, and you have to hit them again while in this state to kill them. While playing the game, this mechanic flows very naturally. It's still obvious that you're hitting him, but it doesn't make it confusing. It's a nice attention to detail, and I enjoy it. Then there's the spinny guys that I mentioned a bit earlier, that are fucking hilarious. I mean, look at them. What even is their job? Think about it. At the beginning of the game, these lurker guys are shown to have some sort of evil overlords telling them what to do. So clearly, the reason you come across them in this underwater city, this is an awesome level by the way, is because they have some sort of business here. They got a job to do for the evil masters. And it doesn't matter exactly what it is, I forget what they're doing there, but I'm pretty dang sure it has nothing to do with spinning around until you get dizzy, and then spinning again.
I love them. It's like they're at the office, and the boss is like, he's gone, so they're sort of like, hey, we can fuck around. We can go on the office chairs, we can go on the spinny office chairs, we can spin around like complete idiots for like ever, because he can't see us down here in this secret underwater base, he's not here with us. Woo! Let's go, let's have a race. There's a bunch of enemies that are cool, but none top the spinny guys. Although, the scariest enemy award definitely goes to the lurkerfish. There are no invisible walls in the ocean, at least none that I know of. You can just swim out there for a while and it feels like you can go on forever. But at a certain point, you start hearing something. What's that? Is that a heartbeat? Am I running out of stamina or something? I don't like the sea anymore, Father. I don't want to go fishing with you again. No, you don't understand. I'm gonna be eaten whole. Jak and Daxter.
The environments in Jak and Daxter are some of the most beautiful on the PS2. Well, beauty is in the eye of the beholder, but they're certainly colourful and innovative. There's no loading screens for one thing. Every bit of the world is seamlessly connected. If you look from a high enough vantage point, you can see other parts of the game in all their low poly majesty. From Sentinel Beach you can see Misty Island. From Sandover Village you can see the giant precursor towers of the Forbidden Forest. And from the towers of the Forbidden Forest you can see the giant lurker blimp hanging over the boggy marsh off in the next area. Not only that, but you can see the fire canyon that leads there, and later, on top of the snowy peak, much further into the game, if you look back, you can see the blimp at what appears to be Sandover Village. And from the very last area in the game, the top of the citadel where you fight the last boss, you can see the mountain and the blimp.
It makes the world feel very coherent, like everything is physically connected. And for all I know it is, I don't know whether that's possible, I'm not a programmist. There are a few other minor things that add to the coherence of the world. In the Forbidden Jungle, there are these thorny vines that attack you if you get too close. If you punch them, they get stunned for a second, but you can't kill them. Later, if you venture into the Precursor Temple, you'll find this plant boss. When you beat it and leave, you find that all the thorns around the level are dead as well. It was just one big plant. Pretty cool. Another thing is that the blimp I mentioned that you can see in various areas of the game is actually part of a mission. In the Boggy Swamp, the Lurker forces are trying to use the blimp to raise up some precursor artifact from the depths. Your job, as Samos tells you, is to cut the cables tethering the blimp to the ground so that it'll fly away. If you do this, the blimp does indeed fly away and you can no longer see it in other parts of the game. So it's like you do a thing and then it reacts and it's just like it's everything that's doing the things is all connected.
The environment is split into hubs and sub-hub hections. There. That's the name I gave it. The hubs are the places where you'll find all the NPCs. When you talk to them, a cutscene happens and they give you a request to do something in one of the subsections. Or they just ask for a bunch of precursor orbs in exchange for a power cell. I really like the NPCs in this game. They got a whole lot of character to them. They're fully voice acted and very animated. I mean, who could forget the gambler with no pants? The dude sculptor, and the skittish, jumpy, and all-around ridiculous mayor.
Yeah. Oh, you're funny.
There's one NPC that I'm not actually very fond of, and that's the fisherman. Okay, I get it. You have lots of fish. Shut the fuck up! Speaking to the fisherman initiates a fishing minigame. You gotta catch the fishies and avoid the poisonous eels. It's kinda hard, but not unfairly so. Once you get the hang of it, it's really fun. But getting the hang of it means you win, and there's no way to replay it afterwards, which is kind of a shame. And when you win, the fisherman gives you a power cell, and then proceeds to stand there and laugh for presumably ever. Actually...
I'd never tried this before, but right now I'm far enough into the game to fight the last boss. Let's go back and see if he's laughing after all this time. He is. Well, now I know. Please, shut up, it's not funny. Those fish are probably gone rotten by now.
The subsections are where all the adventure is. There's monsters and power cells and precursor orbs, puzzles, hazards, eco-vents, precursor artifacts, machines, objectives, subjectives, and occasionally the Agrav Zoomer or Flut-Flut. The Zoomer is placed in certain levels for use in platforming that cannot be done on foot. And by that I mean sweet airtime, bro! Flut-Flut's kinda similar, but instead of using ramps and momentum to make long distances, he jumps and flutters. These are the only vehicles in the game. Flut-Flut's fun, but only gets used twice, which is a shame. It would have been nice to have an entire level designed for Flut-Flut, instead of having a small section of 2 other levels to play on. It just wasn't enough. I think the Zoomer gets his fair share of screen time though.
And that's it. I talked about everything in the game. Talked about the levels, talked about the enemies, talked about the precursor orbs, the collectibles, the power cells. I didn't talk about the story, but it's not really much of a story. You just go in to try and find somebody to cure Daxter, and there's a bit of an evil guy. And I didn't talk about the boss battles. They're basically just like the enemies. They're kind of easy. And there's not very many of them. There's like 3. Including the last one. The last one's a bit hard. And now, because I'm secretly a salesman hired by Naughty Dog to get you to buy this game, here is some salesman pitch of the levels of the game that I didn't go into detail about, and here they are.
Visit beautiful Sentinel Beach. It's got all the sand, sun, sea, sky, and stuff that you could ever wish for. Also, bombs, and avalanches caused by seagulls, and vicious lurker dogs, and power cell stealing pelicans. Holy shit, fuck that guy. Okay, don't go to Sentinel Beach. How about the Precursor Basin? Ever wanted to catch some air? How about sweet air? Ever wanted to collect orbs while in the air? Maybe you'd just like to fall through the air after failing the dang blue ring challenge for the 40th time? Well, now you can! In fact, you always could! I'm not a good salesman at all! I don't know how to end this video. I just like Jak and Daxter. I don't know. What do you want from me?
Hippo, what do? I don't know how to end the episode. Just don't be a fucking idiot.
Thanks. Thanks, Hippo. Follow me on Twitter and Facebook at Hippocrit/Facebook, Twitter/Facebook, and Hippocrit/crippled hippos. If you want to see more Hippocrit, subscribe! If you don't subscribe!